Hey there, future policymakers. You know, if you're listening, you're probably on that UPSC prep journey.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. It can be overwhelming, too.
Absolutely.
We're here to help you out a bit, give you an edge today with a deep dive into some topics that might just help you out with those exams.
For sure.
We've got a real mix today.
Yeah.
Everything from some really interesting discoveries in the animal kingdom to international agreements that you should probably know about.
It's amazing how it's all connected, right?
It is.
All these random things.
Yeah.
And they all tie back to these broader themes that the UPSC loves.
They do.
Should we jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Let's start with something that really caught my eye this week. It's called the Science and Heritage Research Initiative.
Okay.
SHRI.
SHRI.
Oh,
Like
well,
it.
yeah.
What is that?
So imagine a world where we're using cutting-edge technology to restore ancient artifacts,
Okay.
where historical monuments are preserved with scientific precision,
Wow.
and even traditional art forms are revitalized with modern tools.
That's amazing.
That's SHRI.
So it's like
It's this really cool...
the bridge
Yeah.
between the past and the future.
Exactly. It's about connecting our rich cultural heritage
Okay.
with science and technology.
That's awesome.
And this is spearheaded by the Ministry of Science and Technology.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's a really good sign that they're putting their weight behind it.
Absolutely.
This kind of reminds me, though, of another story we came across.
Yeah.
The passing of Jodhaya,
Oh, yes.
a Baiga tribal artist and Padma Shri awardee.
A true icon.
Yeah.
You know, her art really brought international recognition
Yeah.
to the Baiga tribe's unique style and culture.
So for our listeners who might not be familiar with the Baiga tribe,
Sure.
tell us a bit about them.
Yeah, so the Baiga tribe are classified as a PVTG,
What?
a particularly vulnerable tribal group.
Okay.
And understanding their challenges, their traditions, their relationship with the forest,
Yeah.
it's all crucial for the UPSC exam.
Gotcha. So definitely something to look into.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of challenges, let's shift gears a bit here
Okay.
to a different kind of concern.
Yeah.
Persistent organic pollutants.
POPs.
POPs.
Catchy name.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And apparently they've been found in orcas.
All creatures.
What's the deal with these POPs?
Yeah.
Why should a UPSC aspirant care?
So POPs are these really dangerous chemicals, and they're dangerous because they stick around in the environment for a long time, and they
That's-
accumulate in the food chain.
Okay, so explain that a little bit more.
So you've got these tiny organisms that might ingest a tiny amount of POPs.
Right.
Then a bigger fish comes along, eats a bunch of those smaller organisms,
Uh-huh.
and then an even bigger fish eats those, and so on. So
Yeah.
by the time you get to the top predators, like orcas,
Right.
they've got these really high concentrations of POPs in their bodies.
Wow, so even though we don't see them,
Yeah,
they're out there causing all this harm.
exactly. They're a silent threat.
That's a little unsettling.
It is a bit. But the
Huh.
good news is we're
Yeah.
doing something about it.
Right.
There's this global treaty called the Stockholm Convention,
Okay.
and its aim is to eliminate or at least restrict
Okay.
the production and use of POPs.
Great.
And India is a signatory.
Awesome.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind for the UPSC.
International cooperation's a theme today.
It is.
Speaking of which, we've got to talk about Moldova signing the International Solar Alliance Framework Agreement.
This is great news for renewable energy.
Yeah.
The ISA was actually conceived by India and France.
Oh, wow.
And the goal is to really mobilize investments in solar energy,
Okay.
expand access to energy, and achieve these really ambitious solar energy targets globally.
So what makes the ISA such a big deal for the UPSC exam?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
India is taking a leadership role
Right.
in the fight against climate change
Yeah.
on a global scale.
Uh-huh.
The ISA is a perfect example of that.
Gotcha. So it's a win-win.
Exactly.
Taking on climate change,
Yeah.
but also raising India's global standing.
Absolutely.
I like it.
So speaking of climate change,
Yeah.
remember that fascinating discovery in Delhi's Yamuna Biodiversity Park?
You mean the Rotten's free-tailed bat?
That's the one. Quite a surprise, huh?
It is. So
Yeah.
for our listeners who might think this is a little random,
Yeah.
a bat sighting in Delhi.
Mm.
What's the UPSC connection?
So this bat was previously thought to be restricted to the Western Ghats,
Okay.
and it's considered data deficient.
Data deficient.
Well-
What does that even mean?
So the IUCN has this list called the Red List,
Okay.
and it assesses the conservation status of different species.
Mm-hmm.
Data deficient basically means we just don't have enough information
Oh,
about the species to assess its risk of extinction.
so we don't even know if it's endangered.
Exactly.
It could be.
It could be.
We just don't know.
We just don't know.
That's crazy.
It is, and it highlights these gaps in our knowledge about biodiversity, especially as the world's changing so rapidly.
Wow. So this little bat is basically a reminder that we need to do a better job with biodiversity conservation.
Absolutely.
Which is definitely a key topic for the UPSC.
For sure.
Speaking of biodiversity and, ecological balance, there's this short-neck clam.
Oh, yeah, the Paphia malabarica.
The Paphia malabarica.
From Ashtamudi Lake in Kerala.
What is so special about this little clam?
This clam is like a celebrity in the sustainable fishing world.
Okay.
So Ashtamudi Lake is home to India's first MSC-certified fishery.
Hold on. MSC certification. What is that?
So the MSC is the Marine Stewardship Council.
Okay.
It's a global organization that sets standards for sustainable fishing.
Gotcha.
So this certification basically means that the fishery is managed in a way that ensures the long-term health of the clam population.
So it's not just about protecting the clam.
No, it's about the whole ecosystem.
But also about the people who rely on it.
Absolutely. It's about making sure that future generations can also benefit.
It's a crucial aspect of sustainable development.
Exactly.
Which is huge for the UPSC.
It is. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
This certification has not only boosted the local economy in Kerala,
Okay.
but it's also earned the short-neck clam a place in various industries.
Like what?
So they're using the clam meat, obviously.
Yeah.
But even the shells are being used.
The shells. What do they use the shells for?
They grind them up and use them as a calcium supplement in poultry feed.
Wow.
They're also used in the pharmaceutical and paint industries.
That's so cool.
It's pretty amazing what you can do with a clamshell.
Who knew?
Right.
But I'm guessing there's got to be a catch, right?
Of course. There's always a catch.
If it's so valuable, surely it's facing some threats.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So despite all this success,
the
short-neck clam is facing some serious threats.
Like what?
Pollution. Invasive species.
Which ones?
Like the charu mussel.
And
of course, the unpredictable effects of climate change.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
And all of these factors were putting pressure on the clam population.
Yeah.
And it just highlights this really complex interplay between development and environmental protection.
This reminds me of another instance where climate change is impacting our planet in a big way.
Oh, yeah.
The Arctic tundra.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Now, why would a UPSC aspirant need to know about what's happening in the Arctic?
The Arctic might seem far away.
Okay.
But what happens there affects the entire planet.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people don't really think about that.
Yeah, and there's this worrying trend.
Okay.
The tundra, which was once a reliable carbon sink, is becoming a carbon emitter.
Wait, the tundra's changing teams.
It is.
So it's going from absorbing carbon to releasing it.
Exactly. It's pretty alarming.
How is that even possible?
So it's mainly driven by thawing permafrost, which is releasing trapped greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide and methane, into the atmosphere. And that obviously has a huge impact on global climate patterns.
Absolutely. And it's impacting sea level rise.
Yeah.
And the delicate balance of the Arctic ecosystems.
So it's all connected.
It's all connected.
Which brings us to another event, a global event.
Yeah.
That a UPSC aspirant should definitely have on their radar.
What's that?
Cyclone Chido hitting Mayotte.
Oh, yeah. This was a stark reminder of nature's power.
Yeah, it was the strongest cyclone to hit Mayotte in over 90 years.
Wow.
Wind speeds of 200 kilometers per hour.
That's intense.
It is. So, okay, why Mayotte specifically?
So, understanding the location of Mayotte.
Okay.
It's a French territory in the Mozambique Channel.
Okay.
And its significance in the Indian Ocean region is important.
Gotcha.
From a geopolitical perspective.
Okay.
But it also highlights this importance of disaster management and climate change preparedness.
Right. Especially for a country like India.
Exactly.
That's vulnerable to natural disasters.
Yeah.
So it's not just about knowing the facts, but understanding the why behind them.
Absolutely.
Why do these events matter? How do they connect to the bigger picture?
That's what the UPSC is all about.
I think that's a really important takeaway for our listeners today.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
But there's still so much more to explore.
There is.
We'll be back after a short break.
Okay.
To discuss even more topics that are going to spark your curiosity.
Sounds good.
And hopefully boost your UPSC knowledge. Stay tuned.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. I hope our listeners are ready for more because we've got a lot more to talk about.
Definitely. We were just discussing how climate change is impacting the Arctic tundra. turning it from a carbon sink into a carbon emitter.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling to think about.
It is. It feels so far away.
Yeah, but it has such a big impact on us here in India.
So what can be done about it? Is it all doom and gloom, or is there hope for the Arctic?
Well, it's definitely challenging, but it's not hopeless. International cooperation is key here. Yeah. The Arctic Council, which is this intergovernmental forum for Arctic nations, they play a really important role in addressing these issues.
So what are they actually doing?
They're working on a whole bunch of things like reducing emissions, promoting sustainable development, and protecting the Arctic environment.
It's reassuring to hear that there are people working on it.
Yeah, for sure. And remember, the UPSC loves complexity.
They do.
So understanding all these nuances, the different players involved, and the potential solutions is really crucial for those exams.
So let's test that understanding then.
Okay.
Say a question pops up about the Arctic in the UPSC exam.
Right.
What are some key points our listeners should keep in mind?
So first and foremost, understanding the science behind climate change. And how it impacts the Arctic is super important.
So they need to be able to explain things like?
Yeah, things like thawing, permafrost, greenhouse gas emissions, and how that impacts global climate patterns.
It's not just about memorizing facts.
Yeah. No.
It's about understanding that cause and effect.
Yeah, the why behind the what.
Exactly. What else?
They should also be aware of the geopolitical significance of the Arctic.
Okay. Explain that a bit more.
So with the ice melting, it's opening up new shipping routes.
Oh, wow.
And access to resources.
Okay.
So the Arctic is becoming this increasingly important area.
It's like a whole new frontier.
It is.
With both opportunities and potential for conflict.
Exactly. And of course, they should be familiar with the Arctic Council. The member states and all the different initiatives that are being undertaken to address climate change. And promote sustainable development.
This is really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Speaking of things that could pop up on the exam, we can't forget about those MSC-certified short-neck clams.
Our little sustainable seafood stars.
It's a great example of sustainable development in action.
It is a real-world case study.
But is MSC certification always a guarantee of long-term sustainability?
That's a great question.
Are there any limitations to that approach?
You know, that's kind of critical thinking that will really impress the UPSC examiners.
Okay, good.
So while the MSC certification is a really robust system, it's not a magic bullet. It requires continuous monitoring, adaptive management, and a real commitment from everyone involved.
So it's not a one-and-done solution.
No, it's an ongoing process.
What would you say are the biggest challenges to ensuring the long-term sustainability of the short-neck clam fishery?
Well, as we mentioned, climate change is a huge factor. You know, the unpredictable weather patterns, rising sea temperatures.
It's like trying to hit a moving target.
It is. And then there's the issue of illegal fishing.
Right, which can undermine even the best managed fisheries.
Exactly. It's a constant battle.
It is. What about those invasive species we talked about?
Yes. So those invasive species like the shrew mussel,
Yeah.
they can really disrupt the natural balance of the ecosystem.
How so?
Well, they can outcompete native species for resources, and they can even smother the short-neck clams.
So what are the authorities doing to manage this invasive species problem?
Well, they're employing a variety of strategies, like manually removing the mussels, researching biological control methods, and public awareness campaigns to prevent their spread.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
It is.
It's amazing how these seemingly simple creatures are connected to such complex issues.
They really are. And that's why it's so important for UPSC aspirants to really dig deep and go beyond just the headlines.
Okay, let's shift gears again.
All right.
Remember that rare bat sighting in Delhi?
The Rotten's free-tailed bat.
Yes. It's a good reminder that we still have so much to learn.
We do.
About the world around us.
Absolutely.
Why is it so important to discover and document these rare species?
Each species plays a unique role in the ecosystem.
Okay.
And losing even one can disrupt that delicate balance of nature.
Right.
Imagine a complex web with each thread representing a different species.
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
If you start pulling out those threads, eventually the whole web collapses.
That's a great analogy.
So discovering a rare species like the Rotten's free-tailed bat is like finding a missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it helps us understand the bigger picture.
Exactly.
We mentioned earlier that the Rotten's free-tailed bat is classified as data deficient.
Right.
by the IUCN. Can you remind our listener what that means?
Sure. So the IUCN Red List,
Okay.
it's this global inventory of the conservation status of plants and animals.
So data deficient means?
It means we just don't have enough information about the species to assess its risk of extinction.
It's like trying to solve a problem without having all the pieces.
Exactly. And for the UPSC, this highlights the need for strong research data collection and monitoring of biodiversity.
And, of course, the legal frameworks.
Yes. So the Wildlife Protection Act is really important here.
It provides legal protection to endangered species.
Like the Rotten's free-tailed bat.
This conversation has been really eye-opening.
It has been interesting, hasn't it?
It has. It's amazing how interconnected everything is.
It really is.
From climate change to biodiversity loss.
Yeah.
Sustainable fishing, international agreements.
It's all connected.
It's all part of this larger tapestry that we need to understand.
And that's what makes preparing for the UPSC so challenging and rewarding.
We're going to take a quick break here.
All right.
But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more insights and analysis to help you ace those UPSC exams. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive.
I hope our listeners are ready for more insights.
I think so.
Yeah.
We left them hanging a bit with those POPs.
Yeah, the silent threats.
It's scary to think that even creatures in the most remote areas are affected by them.
Right. So those persistent organic pollutants, they can travel long distances.
Okay.
Contaminating even the most pristine environments.
It's like there's no escaping them.
And remember, they bioaccumulate up the food chain.
Right. So the higher up you go, the more concentrated the POPs become.
Exactly. Creatures like orcas are particularly vulnerable because they're at the top.
Makes sense. It's a sobering reminder that our actions have consequences.
They really do.
But what can we actually do about this problem? It feels so huge.
Well, it is a global problem,
Yeah.
which means it requires a global solution.
Okay.
The Stockholm Convention is a crucial step in the right direction.
Okay.
The goal is to eliminate or restrict the production and use of these harmful chemicals.
And we mentioned earlier that India is a signatory.
We did.
That's a good sign.
It shows a commitment to tackling this issue on an international level.
But it's not enough to just sign agreements.
Right. It's about effective implementation.
What are some of the challenges involved in actually controlling POPs?
Well, you need strong national policies.
Okay.
Robust enforcement mechanisms.
Right.
Public awareness campaigns to really change behavior.
Yeah, that's important.
And then there's the whole issue of legacy POPs.
Oh, yeah, the ones that were already released?
Exactly. They're still out there in the environment.
So it's like cleaning up a mess that's already been made.
It is. It's a long and complex process.
Okay, so for our listeners out there, imagine a question on POPs pops up on the UPSC exam.
All right.
What are the key points you need to remember?
Well, first, they need to be able to define POPs.
Right.
Explain what they are, why they're dangerous.
Oh, sure.
They should also be familiar with the Stockholm Convention.
Okay.
Its objectives and India's role in it.
Okay. So it's about showing that they understand the problem and the solutions.
Right, and they need to be able to go beyond the basics.
Give me an example.
So discuss the challenges of implementing the convention.
Okay.
Like monitoring POP levels, enforcing regulations, and addressing those legacy POPs.
It's about showing that deeper understanding.
Exactly.
And connecting the dots.
Right.
Between environmental issues and things like public health, economic development,
yes.
International relations.
It's all connected.
Any final words of wisdom for our aspiring policymakers?
My advice would be to really embrace the learning process.
Okay.
The UPSC exam is not just about rote memorization.
Right.
It's about developing a curious mind.
Yeah.
Exploring diverse perspectives, engaging in healthy debates.
Being open to new ideas.
Exactly.
So to all our listeners out there, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and never lose that curiosity.
The world needs your passion and your insights.
And if you enjoyed today's deep dive, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
We really appreciate your support.
It helps us reach more people.
We're always looking for new topics.
Yeah, so if you have any suggestions,
send them our way.
We're all ears.
Until next time, keep learning and keep striving for a better